We've been telling stories for thousands of years now. The oldest known story is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which dates to around 2,100 years BCE. But that's just the oldest we've found. Stories have existed for as long as humans have, and despite what you have otherwise been told, storytelling is the oldest profession. But why do we tell stories? What's their purpose?
All stories are about death.
There's one thing that sets us apart from most other creatures, at least as far as we can tell, and that is our ability to imagine the future.
Great Scott!
And that includes our own death. We are conscious of our own mortality. Now, some other creatures also appear to be conscious of this, but they don't tell stories about it the way we do. So I ask again, why do we tell stories? What is their purpose?
Everybody's gonna die. Come watch TV.
All stories, whether they be fact or fiction, have, to my mind, one overarching purpose. They teach us how to live.
Teach a man to fish, yada yada yada.
They educate. It might be practical skills that will help us survive, emotional skills, teaching us how to interact with others or how to deal with misfortune and tragedy, or psychological and philosophical skills that teach us what it means to be human, to be part of a society or a social group. Underlying all these lessons is the spectre of death, of our own mortality, the unspoken motivation that we need to make the most of life, because it will all end eventually. This is why in most stories the highest stakes your character will face is the threat of death. Stories teach us vicariously, through a character's actions and choices, how to confront our own mortality, how to defeat death in the short term, to survive and keep on living, but also how to accept it in the end.
We're gonna be okay. You can rest now.
This is why most stories have a sacrifice moment. The moment when your central character, literally or metaphorically, dies and is in some way resurrected. Unless it's a tragedy, where they just die, making the lesson of one's mortality even starker. We can all think of stories that tackle death head-on. They can do this viscerally, as in horror, thriller, and action genres, which dramatize our more primal fears, or more philosophically, as in sci-fi, fantasy, and drama. Other stories are not so obvious. They don't so much deal with mortality as they do with making the most of one's life.
Every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
That's right. That's right. Attaboy, Clarence.
They're more optimistic, more positive. But after the fairy tale happy ending, when all the metaphorical life-threatening obstacles have been overcome, there's the knowledge that happily ever after is not actually forever after. Kids begin to understand this from the age of 4. So all stories, one way or another, are about death. Their purpose is to teach us how to avoid it and live a productive life, how to cope with the death of others, and ultimately, how to accept our own inevitable death. Now, of course, many stories take the view that death is not the end, that there is something after. And there is a whole subgenre of stories dealing with the afterlife in its many forms, be it heaven and hell, reincarnation, Valhalla, limbo, or some other version of what comes next. These stories can be a lot of fun to write, because no one really knows for sure. This is what religion is, after all. A collection of stories with a particular view of the world that seeks to teach us how to live and how to die.
Always look on the bright side of life.
And which try to answer the big question of what comes next.
In a past life, this innocent womb could have been your mother.
So why am I telling you this? In my last video, I explained what story was, and how theme often makes the difference between a bad story and a good one. That theme, one way or another, is going to be about one of two things: how to live a better life, or how to die well. To quote one of my own characters, the only thing worth living for is something worth dying for. If your story can do that, then no matter where or when it's set, no matter how real or fantastic its vision, people will respond to it. Because we all at heart seek the same thing. After all, we're only human. I'm Phil Moore. Chukkas.